Guy coming back here with another one. Well, still on vacation, trying this setup, see how this works. Hopefully I got the AirPods. Hopefully the audio is not too bad, but I saw Shai was saying that he thinks the KEF is lying about what Binance was saying. I know he is really against the KEF, and I somewhere said he doesn't care about the listings. Eventually you're with adoption, any project that's going to be a top 2 or 3 or 5 projects going to be listed anywhere. Even look, Binance is listed everywhere. Robinhood, Coinbase, and you'll need those listings eventually. And I was listening to an interesting video about this guy talking about adoption. It could be Tesla, electric cars, the horse, It didn't happen right away. I mean, once cars really came out, was it 25, 30 years before cars overtook horses? And horses didn't just die out right then. So it takes time and it's a bumpy road, but eventually you will need those listings, for that liquidity, and you're not going to get a top 5 project that's not listed on those top ones. And what's interesting is that guy was just pointing out is everyone gets super excited thinking adoption is going to happen faster than it probably will. And the market goes up. Everyone thinks that the adoption is going to happen real quick. Then all of a sudden it falls down and the people realize that it's not going to happen this year. As much as exciting stuff is happening, you see Bank of America, having people, their advisors, 18,000 or whatever, put 1 to 4% or suggest 1 to 4% allocation into Bitcoin and crypto. Vanguard letting the ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs, crypto ETFs. That's the thing now. You're going to have, if you're a top 5 project, you're going to have an ETF, a bunch of ETFs, you're going to run the thread of paper, Kaspa, Bitcoin, whatever it is. You're going to have those large power players, and I just don't think you're going to get something that ever truly achieves mass adoption without reaching that level. Now, if it's something you can't control, Shai thinks that the KEF is doing more damage than good. And eventually, I guess if they did do the HTX listing, and if you see Chris Hutchinson's post, or if you saw the HTX post from yesterday, they had a little Kaspa logo. You kind of had to zoom in on it. So, if they did have some Kaspa, like eventually they don't probably have that much Kaspa. So eventually that organization might kind of go away. I guess if the value of Kaspa goes up, then maybe the dollar value. But you can see today good news comes out with inflation, market goes down. Last time I checked, it's still looking like 90% or whatever for a rate cut next week. But you can see rate cut's not just something that always magically just makes it go up that day. You can see September rate cut. Shortly after that, Bitcoin hit an all-time high. And then at the end of October, there's another rate cut. And, we went down to 80,000 and not too long after that. So you just gotta, stay buckled in and play your game. We're all different. I know people that watch my channel range from people that think Kaspa's garbage, or they used to be into it and they're just come to comment, or there's a lot of people that are Kaspa maxis that they've shifted everything in there. And there's people kind of in the middle, like myself, that have Kaspa, but I'm not all in on Kaspa. And, basically, if you're going to have adoption over the next 10 or 20 years, the prices of stuff that's going to be around and being partaken, and you look at proof of work, a lot of people are talking about currency like Musk and the CEO of Nvidia talking about Bitcoin energy basically being a currency. And so you're looking around at proof of work, and it seems like Kaspa is obviously the best technology with a lot of upgrades coming, like vprogs and maybe even 100 blocks per second. When that happens, we don't know. But they just have to play your game, because it's going to be up and down. And right when you think that the most exciting and the coolest level of adoption happens, then the market tends to kind of go down. Right after that, it seems like, And then right when it seems like the darkest times, which is the best times to buy, things turn around and it's going to be that seesaw battle. And you're also going to have those big power players out there manipulating it. You know, we don't know who Walt number one is. I saw Crypto Pump's video trying to connect the dots with the 333 stuff and the Masons and crypto.com or whatever. We just don't know if it's a market maker, HTX, Binance. We don't know. You can see people that still, I saw someone in the comments on Shai's post thinking that because that Binance06.cas was on Walt number one, that it might be Binance. And most people know that anyone can create a KNS name and send it over to any wallet. So there's no relevance to that. We don't know who that is. And they've accumulated a lot. I've only seen one transfer out, and for a very small amount months ago. But yeah, you know, I think it's really exciting. I think with Trump's administration, they're going to keep trying to pump it. It's not going to be something that happens right away, but they're adopting Bitcoin, crypto, SEC. You look at the head of the SEC, you look at Howard Lutnick. I mean, his company, which he's not running, or he's shadow running it. And then some people start talking about the new chairman of the Federal Reserve. What he says actually starts becoming more important than what Powell says, because Powell, everyone knows, is out of the door on May. There's 0% chance that he's going to stay past May. So if he's having, hawkish forecasts in January or February, but the shadow chair, which is Kevin Hassett, who used to, be a Coinbase advisor, if Kevin Hassett is all bullish, or not bullish is not the right word, but if he's dovish and he's wants, pro-growth, lower rates, that's what the market's going to be listening to. So, I mean, either the 4-year cycle's intact and we're screwed and there was no altcoin season, or things are different and we're following the business cycle, the manufacturing, other stuff, and it just happened at times to or correlate with that. Or maybe in the first years the halving was a bigger deal because there's less adoption, but looks like the game's maybe changed. And with Kaspa, it's not going to be a road that's easy to handle, because you're going to be seeing your stuff volatile. And if it ever gets the adoption that a lot of people think it can, and say it did get a top 5 someday, it's, I don't think that's going to happen this cycle, or maybe if the cycles are dead, I wouldn't say that's probably going to happen in 2026, but the prices will be a lot less, depending on how my meme coin play goes on this. My dog Bitcoin meme coin play, I'll maybe alter some of my strategy on Kaspa because, the seasonality and, there was never a big altcoin season if it was a 4-year cycle. So now that cycle might be out the door, it might be harder to try to time stuff. So that's making me consider taking less profit with my cash position if that comes up. So that's enough for the rambling there, but you have, it seems like every day there's a ton of stuff going on. I know some people are, feel like Jonathan got snubbed by Binance. Who cares? I know the movement to delete Binance, that's fine. Eventually things will happen the way they're supposed to, but eventually if Kaspa was going to reach the levels a lot of us think it could, it will get listed in a lot of places. And there's no technology barriers. I know people talk about that, but like I've mentioned before, you have all these small exchanges like MEXC and KuCoin and all these places that have a lot less resources than the big dogs. They could list it in days if they wanted to, in my opinion. They have the staff and the technical knowledge to do that. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.